All right, we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone from New York City. I think many of you in the audience are probably in a different time zone, and we have this particular information session early New York time to make sure that we captured our global prospective students. So today we're going to talk a bit about the program in global thought at Columbia. We have two alumni with us who can really give you a sense of what it's like to be a student in global thought. And we have Kevin Funk, who's a fellow at Global Thought and teaches many of the CGT courses. So let me first thank everyone for being here, to our panelists, to those in the audience, and I'll introduce our panelists. So Kevin Funk is a fellow in global thought. He's a political economist and Latin Americanist who specializes in globalization, the politics of Brazil and Chile, and urban studies. He's also interested in the sociology of academic knowledge production, cultural analysis, and qualitative and interpretive methods. He's the author of Rooted Globalism, Arab Latin American Business Elites and the Politics of Global Imaginaries, which has just come out from Indiana University Press. Rasmus Foss is a CGT graduate from the class of 2021, and he works today for a Copenhagen-based think tank with a focus on European politics. Before coming to Columbia, Rasmus was a journalist at a Danish newspaper and studied at the Copenhagen Business School. Rasmus was born and raised in Denmark. And our other alum is Sidra Yousaf. She is class of 2022, and Sidra completed her MA at Global Thought and is now pursuing an MPhil in Modern South Asian Studies at the University of Oxford as an Aker Scholar. She has a bachelor's degree in international relations from the University of Oslo, as well as previous experience as an intern at the U.S. Embassy in Oslo and as a research assistant at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. Her interests are centered around nationalism, religion, and identity politics in South Asia, with a special focus on Pakistan. While not studying, Sidra enjoys spending time with her college friends, taking long walks, and enjoying a warm cup of hot chocolate with an Ezra Klein podcast or Bollywood and Qawwali music on ear. And I'll introduce myself very quickly. My name is Sarah Miller-Davenport. I'm the graduate program director at the Committee on Global Thought. I'm a trained historian whose research and teaching focus on how the global circulation of ideas, people, and capital shaped American society in the decades after World War II. And I'm the author of Gateway State, Hawaii, and the Cultural Transformation of American Empire. And before coming to Columbia, I was senior lecturer at the University of Sheffield in the history department. All right, so introductions are out of the way. People are filtering in. So let's jump right into our discussion. So I'm going to make this announcement a few times during the session. We're going to set aside 15 minutes at the end for audience Q&A. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. And some of those questions, we're looking for questions that are, the kinds of questions that can't be answered on the internet. So we will be providing some links to, the more kind of nitty gritty of how to apply and details about the program. But this is really your chance to get a sense, again, of what CGT is all about from the people who work at CGT and more importantly, from our alumni. So please post questions as they occur to you and we will address them one way or another throughout the session. And I'll also say that at the end of the session, this will be recorded, it will be posted online, and so if you want to rewatch it for any reason, you can do so. And we will also be emailing you with information about applying if you haven't started an application already, and with a chance to set up an appointment with me one-on-one, again, to dig in a bit more deeply to, about CGT and the application process. All right, so with all that out of the way, let's get started. So for our alumni, drew you to CGT, and why did you choose this program over other MA programs. We were talking a bit about this before we started, so I'm gonna give that question first to Rasmus. Why CGT? What drew you to this particular program and over other MA programs on offer?
Yeah, well, I was looking for degrees in the field of international political economy, but I found they were quite rare. I mostly found studies in degrees in global studies, international affairs, so on. And then the CGT really stood out, and it was just too interesting not to look into. And I think I was especially struck by, well, first of all, a really impressive team of faculty, but also the cross-disciplinary program. I was fascinated by how it seemed to combine studies in political economy and global culture, but also with an appreciation of history and the historical discipline. So I think that was what stood out for me.
Sidra, what about you? What drew you to CGT, and why CGT over other MAs?
A bit like Rasmus, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I was thinking, because I did my bachelor's in IR, I was thinking, oh, the natural next choice is to do a MA in IR. So I was very set on going to traditional big IR programs. But then the thing that really stood out about CGT was, as Rasmus touched upon, just the diversity, like the focus on the interdisciplinary aspect, which I think is very, very important. As someone who's done 3 years of IR, I wasn't completely fulfilled by it, and it's quite top down, and I wanted some more insights into specific regions, into a bit more how things work on the ground level. And I feel like with CGT, I could retain my interest in IR while also exploring a lot of other things. I wasn't too sure on what I wanted to do coming after my master's. So this was a great way to just explore a lot of things, not to mention within a city like New York, which also has a lot to offer. And the fact that Columbia has a campus in the middle of, everything around is quite unique, I think. So being able to do all of that in 1 year was something that really stood out.
Yeah, I think one of the, and we'll talk about the many great things about CGT, but as you pointed to, Sidra, I think it really doesn't lock you into anything. You can do so many, other MA programs are much more targeted in terms of what your professional life might look like afterwards. You want to go on to a PhD, but CGT, the year that you spend with CGT, is your year to do what you want with that degree and to use it in multiple different ways after you graduate. Can both of you, some of our audience members might also be looking at IR programs, so I wonder if you could go a bit more deeply into what you think, how you think CGT is different from an IR program. So Sidra, you mentioned that first, so I'll throw that to you.
I think one of the things that are different, and which is also one of the reasons I ended up doing CGT instead of like a typical IR program, has much to do with, I think when you do an IR program, you're very much locked within that department. Or if you're doing political science or whatever, like when you're doing a very department focused program, you're very much locked into just taking the subjects or courses within that department. Meanwhile, there's a lot of other stuff going on. And one of the core things about CGT is you have the CGT committee, and also the ability to really just, outside of the core courses and everything, to really just choose across whatever department. It can be as wide as engineering to, anthropology to music and art. So I think just having that flexibility, if you really want to make CGT a very IR focused program, and you can also do that, like if you recognize first term, like actually, you know what, this exploration isn't really for me, you can really focus this in. I had friends during my time at Columbia who just ended up doing CEPA courses. It was a bit of a hassle to get them confirmed, but in the end, it did happen. It did pull through. And so you can really you can make it a very IR degree if you want to, but you also don't have to. And that's the good thing, just really having that flexibility of not being confined within one department, and really just learning to see things not only from a very top-down view, but also what kind of, one of our core courses when I was there was, I don't remember, but some culture and identity, which was a very anthropological focused core course, which was very interesting because you get to know how social relations are formed on ground level and then how that impacts the larger level. So just really the flexibility, I think, yeah, stood out.
Yeah, Rasmus, what about you? Because it sounds like you were also potentially looking at IR programs or IR adjacent programs. So what do you think makes CGT different specifically from those kinds of programs?
Yeah, I completely agree with the Sidra. And I think that if you are curious academically and want to explore many different fields related to, be it politics or again, political economy and international relations, I would say the CGT is the perfect study. It's definitely not a specialist education, as you say, and it doesn't prepare you for one specific type of job, but I find that to be a strength, actually. And I think for me, what ended up being the most interesting, but also one of the most, the biggest surprises, was learning how important and how interesting it is to study history and to learn to think like a historian, because many of the faculty members are historians, in order to understand the world. And I think for me, it was a way of approaching some of the really big global questions like climate change or changing world orders, but in a way that is, you could say, rooted in a specific place and point in time. And then, as Sidra mentioned, I think the opportunity at Columbia to enroll in courses across many of the different schools, again, from the business school to journalism school, and to customize your degree in essence, that was fantastic. I didn't know that before coming to New York, but that was the core courses were fantastic, and then the electives gave some really interesting and surprising experiences as well. And then I think because it is it's a program, it's a global program, you can say, it unites people from all around the world and with many different kinds of backgrounds. So you're also in a classroom where it's not just one specific type of educational background, and it can be many different people, and that really creates very interesting discussions, I think.
Yeah, thank you. We'll return to the student experience and experience, as part of a cohort was like in a few minutes, because I think that is another real strength of CGT, is the cohesion of the cohort. And I started in July, and I've seen it myself, how quickly everyone bonds and is, among a very diverse group of students, diverse in terms of cultural, ethnic, national background, and also disciplinary background. And I just want to speak to one of your other points, Rasmus, which was, to clarify for those in the audience about how the degree actually works, which is that you have it's an intensive 10-month program. You have to, you need 30 credits to graduate. Half of those credits will be in CGT core classes. So there's an MA seminar that runs both fall and spring. You have an option of, a kind of cultural core class. It's either the course Sidra mentioned, Culture and Identity, or a class called Art and Protest. That's in the fall. Then Kevin teaches a global political economy class. That's a core class. And then there's a class on the international system as well. So those are the core classes. And then the other 15 credits are completely up to you. I mean, it's totally open. As long as they're graduate level classes at Columbia, you can take it. I mean, you could take a class in the engineering school. I mean, it truly, you might have to do some negotiating to get into some of those classes. But if it's graduate level and the instructor lets you in, or you're able to register online, That's all you need to do, right? We don't, you design your curriculum in that way. So I want to throw this question to Kevin now. If you could speak maybe about the interdisciplinarity of CGT, because you yourself are a very interdisciplinary scholar, and I think sometimes when people use that term interdisciplinary, it often refers to, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 disciplines, right? All within, say, the humanities or the social sciences. CGT crosses all kinds of disciplinary boundaries. So I guess, yeah, I'm wondering if you can expand on that a bit, Kevin.
Yes, sure. And it's nice to be in touch with everybody today. Yeah, just to go back to one other thing that you were saying, Sarah. So it really is a program in which people have the opportunity to develop and cultivate the kind of academic experience that's most of interest to them and fits with their research interests. And we also provide a very large amount of assistance as students are going through that process of kind of identifying classes that work vis-a-vis their own needs. In terms of the disciplinary question, so I actually think the best word perhaps to use for CGT in that regard is that it's transdisciplinary. So we have, if you look at the faculty who are directly involved with the CGT community, people really in all sorts of different areas. So, historians, as was mentioned, political scientists like myself, people throughout the social sciences and humanities, but others too. And, we have people who are, affiliated with the business school and people who are in public health and in the climate school, and so on and so forth. And really what the CGT is especially well positioned to do and this makes it different from a lot of conventional kinds of international studies or global studies programs, is it's not just kind of taking different disciplines and putting them together in the same space, but really, engaging in cross-cutting conversations that sort of bring different disciplinary understandings together, and seek to go beyond them as well. And so, we've been talking about, IR and political science. That's my doctoral background. So, I have a PhD in political science with an international relations focus. And, what I would say in that regard that makes, to go back to that question of what makes this different from that sort of program or degree, is that, in different disciplines, of course, you have different bodies of literature that are kind of common to those disciplinary understandings, in particular methodological approaches that go along with those disciplines, sets of sort of conventional understandings or topics of inquiry. And, we really seek to cultivate a space where we go beyond that. And, there are different kinds of methods, different approaches, different subject matters that are all simultaneously on the table. And as Rasmus was mentioning specifically, it just creates this kind of incredibly diverse and vibrant intellectual environment where, we're all in class, talking about political economy related issues, but, one of your classmates, may be doing a research project focused on artificial intelligence. The person sitting next to them may be working on economic development, and someone else is doing gender studies, different regional areas of focus. And so it just makes for a really kind of rich intellectual cross-cutting environment, where again, we're sort of not siloed into particular disciplines, but we're really interested in grappling with like a really complex local global world from lots of different perspectives simultaneously.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way of putting it. And one of the things that came to mind while you were talking, Kevin, is the fact that it is that we are globally focused, and that there's an idea that I think CGT is really interested in addressing the pressing global issues of the day. Which means like the MA seminar, for instance, is constantly in flux, right? We change that seminar every year, to address, and also based on what our students' interests are. But there's this sense, I think, that like there's an urgency to the kinds of questions that CGT scholars ask and are interested in, and with that, a belief that you can't understand climate change as this, big amorphous issue without understanding, both like the science of climate change, right? The global politics of climate change, but also how it affects people on a local level, and the kind of, local political iterations of, of that particular issue, right? Or that you can't understand artificial intelligence without also understanding gender relations, right? I think, so it's not just sort of interdisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity for the sake of it. It really is, part of the kind of CGT mission to understand the complexities and the multifacetedness of the kinds of topics that scholars and students at CGT study. So we still have a number of questions to get through. So I wanna this question is for me and Kevin, but Sidra and Rasmus should chime in as well, because one of the things that's so great about CGT is that we offer students a lot of opportunities beyond the classroom to engage with the program and to engage with the kinds of issues that CGT scholars study. So, so Kevin, could you talk a bit about CGT programming and the sort of give a kind of holistic sense of what that experience would be like for students?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a very robust calendar of events of numerous kinds. And so just to give a few kinds of examples of those sorts of events. So I direct a speaker series, a lunchtime seminar series, which we hold several such events with Columbia and other scholars over the course of the semester. And so just thinking about a few recent examples, we had a scholar join us remotely from Brazil to talk about a recent book he had published regarding Brazil's relations with China. And people again from sort of very different disciplinary kinds of spaces talking about very different projects. And it's really a space that creates a sort of sense of intellectual community that many of our students attend. We have kind of broader public facing events. We have an event coming up soon surrounding the kind of thinking about the global university. We have kind of more directly associated with the program and tailored to the students themselves. We have different kinds of visits that happen at particular times of the year, and maybe Sarah can talk about some of the specifics of those. Kind of something that's been developed this semester has been holding writing retreats for students as they're working on their capstone essays. And then, we also have this kind of much broader universe of events that are available within the Columbia community and beyond in global New York City. And so, they're basically, mostly anything that you would be interested in engaging in outside of the classroom is available. And, we see our role as being to kind of facilitate your access to the broader university and the broader community. And I'll say in that regard as well then that, we really pride ourselves on offering a program that is small and, gives a lot of opportunities for feedback and guidance along the way. And so, you're not kind of thrown into this large university with all these different units, or, New York City more broadly with everything that's going on, and left to your own devices, or, to pursue your own research to your own devices. But, we really do a lot to try to kind of cultivate a sense of cohort and provide a lot of structured feedback along the way.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I think, just to add to your sort of laundry list of events and programs that we offer beyond the classroom, we also have fellowships within CGT where you can work with CGT faculty on their research projects. We have internships. These are both recently launched initiatives. We have an internship program where we're partnering with Columbia World Projects for CGT students to intern virtually at one of the Columbia Global Centers. And we also, I think, a lot of this is about helping you to develop intellectually, but and one of the things, again, I started this summer, and one of the things that I've been so struck by and impressed by, because I've had, a fair amount of experience in higher ed at this point in my life, is how much this program and all the staff really, really care about students. And we really want you to have a good experience intellectually, but also socially. And so, we have a number of social events. We start off the year with a really nice reception so that everyone can meet each other. And we also provide a lot of support to our students. What in the UK would be termed pastoral care, as someone who used to work at a UK university. So we provide intensive advising on your essays. There's a capstone essay that you'll be writing all year, that's due in the spring. You'll have an advisor who works with you closely, a member of CGT staff who works with you closely on your essay, and we're really there to help you navigate this, Columbia as an institution, and also to help you navigate, to the extent that we can, the U.S. immigration system if you're an international student, to help you adjust to life in New York, which can be, a big overwhelming city. So, I think that's something that most MA programs don't have, right? And that level of care and attention for students. So we don't have we're running low on time. We might go a bit into our Q&A section of the session. A reminder to those in the audience to please post any questions you have in the Q&A. But I want to make sure that we go back to our alumni. And if you could talk about how CGT helped prepare you for your current job or your career, and how you use the skills that you've developed at CGT, how you've used them after you've graduated. So Sidra, I'll throw that to you first.
Yeah, so I don't have a job currently. I just jumped into another master's program. But the current master I'm doing here at Oxford is, I would say it's much more research focused than the CGT one. But one thing that the CGT program kind of prepared me for is, we continuously had to write essays or answers to questions. And so there are a lot of that I'm kind of doing here as well. Just learning kind of how to tackle reading material that maybe at times can be too much, learning how to prioritize, what to not prioritize. Also just, I wouldn't say I'm the best at like connecting with people. As someone who came from Europe and then going into the US and kind of getting to know the importance of kind of connecting, especially as someone who's thinking of a career in academia and see myself maybe going back to the US for a PhD. That's something I felt like was valuable there. I made a lot of good connections, both outside of Columbia, but especially inside Columbia with professors, which not only has helped me to kind of adjust to my life here at Oxford and kind of connecting with other professors, but also how close in touch I'm staying with those people and how they really become sort of like mentors who I can come back to in navigating what my future career plans should be. But yeah, I think I'll throw it to Rasmus and then I'll have a think over it while he speaks a little, if that's okay.
Sure. So I work at a think tank focused on European politics, and Denmark's position in it. It's in Denmark, in Copenhagen. I do research and analysis. So, for example, now I'm looking into Ukraine's economic situation during the war and its reconstruction to come. Last month it was health policy in the EU. So it can be many different things. And these are, of course, not close to the core of the CGT program, but given the fact that I have to deal with so many different topics and questions, I would say that the CGT really taught me how to think about these and approach these questions in the right way. And it may sound very abstract, but I think it's very important not to underestimate, how to think about questions, and when you approach them, knowing where to start and what angles to include and so on. Of course, I also gained a lot of knowledge just from all the discussions and reading, but I think, and that goes probably for most degrees. I also discovered how much I didn't know. So in a sense, you get a kind of intellectual humility, which is also good when you have to work at a job afterwards, because you work with people who are much more experienced than you are, and then it's a really important skill, knowing how to gain knowledge and how to think about it in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. One of the signs of a good educational experience to me is that you end up realizing what you don't know. And also, one of the things that we emphasize at CGT is that you're not necessarily going to come out of this degree with a bunch of like policy prescriptions, right? But you'll come out with, the ability to ask questions, right? And to ask questions that get to the heart of the issue, right? Or find new angles into it. So, it is very much about sort of training you to be a critical thinker, right? So I would love to hear from the two of you as well on what advice would you give to prospective students about what to look for in a master's program, and how to apply to CGT, how to make how to have the strongest application possible. So Rasmus, what do you think? I mean, what would you, if you were starting off now looking into master's programs, what would you advise?
I think, first of all, a general piece of advice is that I would look at not what a degree gives you access to, but whether it's interesting or not. I think that's, in the end, is much more rewarding and will also help you find out what to work with when you're finished. And I think, of course, it's a motivational letter, so it should reflect why you're interested in it. And then it's also a good idea to research and look into what are the courses on offer. Of course, they vary from year to year, but go to the class directory on Columbia's website and try to find the appropriate courses that you would find interesting. Have a look at the titles and who's teaching it and so on. And then in the application, this is also a fairly common piece of advice, but mention specific professors, members of the faculty whose work you find interesting, and write also why you think it's interesting. And when I did that research before applying, it also I gained a better sense of why the CGT was the right program for me, because I could see that I was just naturally very interested in what those people did. One last piece of advice is to be mindful of things like, the size of the cohorts, the duration of the degree. I find that to make quite a big difference between degrees. Some are 2-year programs with 100 students. Some, like the CGT, is a 10-month program with, I don't know, is it 40, 50 students? I'm not sure.
We currently have 39 students,
right.
and we expect to be around that number next year.
Okay.
And going forward. Sidra, what about you? What advice would you give to students currently looking for or applying to MA programs, including CGT?
Yeah, just before that, just to kind of adding to the point of the last question, because I feel like my answer was very vague. What is kind of helping my current studies from the CGT? Also adding to what I said and what has been said, just the ability to navigate a highly interdisciplinary space has been extremely useful. And you meet those people throughout the course of life, whether you go into work or you go into further studies. Also, there was a lot of group work, which I remember at sometimes during the program, maybe there and then I found a little bit, not necessarily annoying, but a little bit of a hindrance, but you really learn how to work with people and how to get through those obstacles. And especially because you're from all over the globe, right? So you have completely different ways of thinking. And in terms of what to look for in a MA study program, I think what Rasmus said, everything, I stand by it. First and foremost, it has to be something you're interested in, and something that sparks kind of a sense of passion, because in those moments when you're doing an MA program and you're writing the thesis, or you're doing a large piece of work, it's very hard to motivate yourself and tell yourself, oh, why am I doing this, if there is an initial interest for it. So definitely a first. But then also, as Rasmus said, maybe look at the professors, look at the work that has been done, look at the people in the committee. Is it someone you could, like, is it someone who sparks your interest? But I would also maybe, like, not that you need to know the answer to it, but maybe also asking yourself what you want out of the MA program might be a useful question to ask before you apply or decide which one, especially if you have lots of options. At least that was something I had to ask myself. If you know very well, like, you know what, I just want to use the MA program as a stepping stone to something else. If you're very clear about what you want to do, that's great. Then, that becomes a priority number one. But if you aren't so sure and you're not so sure what you want out of it, then, another MA program fits better. And I would say, especially the MA program in CGT, we had a mix of both. I experienced, you had people who had tons of experience from before, who weren't really just from undergrad, who really knew what they wanted to do, but they still went on and did this program just for the experience and learning how to operate with new insights in the globalized world. And then you had people maybe a bit more like me, who didn't necessarily have that long working experience and just wanted to get a better sense of what they're really interested in. So if you know what you want to do, use that as a stepping stone. If you don't, then focus on what you're interested in and just be open-minded. Be open-minded.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, we certainly have students who come in and have a pretty good sense of what they want to do after they graduate. But we have a lot of students who sometimes start the year thinking they know what they want to do, and over the course of the program change their mind. They come in, and we've had a few students who've changed their essay topics. We don't recommend changing our essay topic too late in the year. But who, because of what they've learned, in the CGT core classes, in their electives, right, have, that's really shifted their perspective on the world, and also on their own sort of life trajectory and career trajectory. So we also, this leads into, we've had a couple of questions in the chat that are asking about sort of, what we're looking for in an application. So one question was general acceptable GPA range. I mean, I can't give you a range. We do read your applications thoroughly, and we're really looking at the applications holistically. But I'm going to throw this one to Kevin in terms of what we're looking for in a successful applicant.
Yeah, I would say that it's really not, it doesn't boil down to any sort of quantitative indicator, certainly. Rather, it's a much more holistic analysis of the applicant. And we really do spend a lot of time reviewing applications in order to see that, insofar as we are a rather unique program, that, applicants understand who we are and what we're about. And, they've been able to articulate a narrative concerning how this unique program will serve them along the way in terms of their trajectory. As Sidra mentioned, it's certainly a writing intensive program, and so we're very much focused on kind of cultivating students' ability to be able to express themselves in different ways, and so we do require a writing sample as well. You know, it is a heavily international cohort. You know, thinking this year, for example, out of the 39 students, we may have, maybe Sarah knows the exact number, but
26 nationalities represented.
right.
Some
So
people have, you know, multiple nationalities.
Right. Right. And you know, we do have many non-native English speakers, of course. But, you know, we are very much looking for, you know, people who, you know, are seeking the sort of educational experience, and, you know, the transdisciplinarity, the globalness as we've been describing it, and, you know, who are open to that kind of open-ended adventure intellectually, and you know, want to figure out how to really ask the right questions, as Sarah put it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we're looking for applications from people who kind of get what CGT is about, right? And understand that it really is a unique MA program. And, you know, who are intellectually curious, right? And who can articulate in their statement of purpose their intellectual development and how that's led them to CGT. And, you know, so, you know, you might, for example, you don't need to say the way you might with a PhD program, say, here's what I want to write my essay on. You know, you don't need to give a specific essay topic, but we do want a sense of what you would be like as a student and what your research interests are, and, you know, what kinds of electives you might take, you know, which professors you might want to work with, that kind of thing. Just, you know, and you know, even you also can say, here's what I want to write my MA essay on. You're not in any way wedded to that, right? You can start, you can say one thing in your application and change your mind by the time you decide on your essay. And we will, by the way, on the essay, because we've sort of danced around this topic. You know, the essay is really a key part of the CGT degree and your experience. And, you know, the CGT staff and faculty work very closely with you on developing your essay from the very beginning. You know, and so you might have, it's okay to have just, you know, a somewhat broad idea of what you want to study. We will work with you on, you know, crafting a research question and a research program, you know, that will help you sort of answer these broad questions by digging in really deeply, and you know, helping you find a manageable research project. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we're for lack of a better term, you know, and it's a bit vague, but we're looking for students who get CGT, right? Who understand what CGT is about, who want to, you know, who know that this is a unique program, you know, and can give us a sense of what they would want to study and what their research interests are, and again, those, and an openness, I think, to you know, to perhaps changing your mind, right, or changing that research trajectory. I think that's, you know, kind of curiosity is really important too. Let me go back to the Q&A. We've had a couple of sort of technical questions. Early decision deadline has passed. What percentage have you already admitted? We haven't. That the deadline just passed. We have not yet officially admitted anyone. It's very hard to say. I can't give a number as to, you know, who will be admitted then, but please do apply. You know, do not be discouraged that we had an early application deadline. We have many students who are admitted with the final application deadline, and I believe we've historically had more applicants for the second deadline anyway. I don't know the acceptance rate off of the top of my head. That's going to change every year as well, just depending on how many applications we get. We had some students, someone ask about applying straight from their undergraduate degree. We have lots of students who come straight from their undergraduate degree, lots who don't. So again, there's no, you know, right path to CGT. And I just want to throw it out to the rest of you, or any final thoughts, anything that you think our audience should know before we close.
Just kind of adding to the last thing about kind of what specifically to think about when applying to CGT. But I just want to say, like, generally, when you apply to a master's program, it is very advisable, I think, no matter what you do. So, like, when you apply to a job, to try to figure out as much as you can about it, so you fully understand. You don't have to fully understand what it is, but at least have an idea of the contours, because I think it's very easy, I don't know, but I guess it's easy for those who read applications to see whether something is replicated from somewhere else and just copy pasted in, and it doesn't really seem like the student understand what this program is about, and it's just kind of a trial. So just really read yourself into what, and that also, I guess, make the decision process easier for understanding what you want to, what program you want to go into and which not.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, you know, we look at applications with an eye to, you know, making sure that you know what you're applying to, you know, for your own sake too, right? Like, if really a better fit for you would be, you know, an MBA, you know, a business school program, right? Like, CGT probably isn't the right fit for you. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree again with the Sidra, and can just elaborate saying that the more specific you can be in your application, the more concrete, avoid perhaps the abstractions and things that you might read in other applications, the better.
Yeah.
And then just to say that I had a fantastic experience and would recommend it to anyone. So yeah, do apply.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, since we have 2 alumni here, and you know, I've now done a number of these information sessions, and have met various alumni who have come through our offices, whether they live in New York or not. You know, first of all, we have a very robust alumni network, which, you know, is wonderful for many reasons, you know, both in terms of just, you know, professional networking and advice and guidance, but also I think it really is a community, and we really make an effort over the course of the year that you're at CGT, but also beyond that year, to foster that sense of community. And, you know, we ask alumni to participate in these information sessions or other alumni events where they're doing service for CGT, and they all generally say yes right away, you know, because they love CGT. And I think that speaks really well to our program. So I want to thank our alumni for being so generous with your time, for you know, being excellent members of the CGT community. To thank Kevin for offering you know, a faculty perspective on CGT, and then just you know, one kind of business note before we close. I mentioned this at the beginning. Some of you filtered in the middle. We will be emailing you afterwards, after this, in the next few days or next week, giving you the chance to have a one-on-one session with me if you have further questions. If Sophia, if you could put in the chat the CGT admissions email, that would be great. If you go to you can also just find it very easily on our website. The best way to get in contact with us is cgtadmissions@columbia.edu. We check that. We have multiple members of staff checking that inbox, and we will get back to you. So if you do have specific questions, please email us there. And I hope to see all of your applications, those of you out in the ether. So have a good day, everyone. Good evening, depending on what time zone you're in. And thanks again to all of our excellent panelists.
Thank you. Nice to see you all again.
Likewise. Thank you so much.